Hello and welcome to this week's BizSmart Lunch and Learn webinar. Our weekly webinars are aimed to provide advice and share knowledge amongst business owners on key business topics. If you are not already a member or a BizSmart client and would like to access our archive of webinars, then please visit our website biz-smart.co.uk and go to the Smart Room page. Our host joining me today is BizSmart Select member Simon Cook from SRC Accountancy Services Limited. But before we start our webinar, can I ask you all to use the question mark function on your screen to post any questions that you may have for Simon, and he will do his best to answer them all at the end of the session. Thank you, Simon. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. Thank you everyone for coming in on this webinar today. What I wanted to do was just go over some of the basics of preparing budgets and cash flow and why they're important for business. Now, I'm just going to go to the first slide. So again, this is myself, Simon Cook from SRC Accountancy Services Limited. So really it's, do you do budgets and cash flow forecasts for your business? Now, I know I'm an accountant at heart, but what I've tried to do is give you this brief presentation from a business owner's point of view, not just an accountant. So for many years I produced budgets and cash flows for lots of businesses. I don't really think it hit home enough until I actually became a business owner myself. So I really just wanted to take you on a small journey on how it's worked out for myself and why I think it's important, not just as an accountant but as a business owner. So a good place to start really, if you're looking at doing some budgets or cash flows for your own business, is just use your latest set of accounts that you may have from your accountant or the figures that you did to put on your last tax return. So you use that as your start basis, and what I would suggest is just keep it simple to start with. There are lots of quite detailed softwares out there that will let you put your own cash flows and budgets together and it will automate it for you. But I certainly, from my own perspective, before I even started my business, I had an idea of what sort of figures that I needed to pull in for my sales, what costs I had, and I just kept it on a basic spreadsheet. I think spreadsheets are underrated actually, and I think you find a lot of us accountants, we love spreadsheets because they are really good and you can keep it quite simple. So what I'm going to do is just take you to a basic spreadsheet. Now, this isn't a real company, so don't worry, we're not looking at anybody's figures here. But this is just basic example of a simple spreadsheet with some annual totals on of income and expenditure. So at the top, we always start by putting our sales revenue or what income we've got coming in, and then down below, all of the things that we spend out, and getting down to sort of a monthly profit or loss. Now, what I would suggest is, let's say for example this is your accounts from last year, is for 2017 take those figures, just copy and paste them into another spreadsheet and put a best guesstimate on what you think you're going to do in the next year. Now, bearing in mind we can be as analytical as possible, but I think a lot of us in business, we can't predict the future, so all we can do is sort of like take historical information and use that best to our information to predict the next year. So basically, like I said, it would just be as simple as copy and paste this sheet and put in some figures for 2017. I know I've worked with clients on these and we've just taken a basic formula and said, why don't we just add 20% to everything, and just added a column on the side and times it up by 20%. All depends on how au fait you are with using spreadsheets, whether you just want to tap the numbers in manually or whether you want to do all the weird and wonderful formulas. I know we've got a good BizSmart Select member who's a whiz with spreadsheets also, so get involved, start using spreadsheets and start looking at your business. Now, one thing that I thought was important when I started looking at budgets and cash flow for business was Did I earmark any budget for marketing? And you know, absolutely. From the start, I thought to myself, this business isn't just going to grow on its own. So I would be saying, here's my annual figures that I predict I'm going to do. But I've almost got a strategy in the back of my head on how I'm going to generate those sales or those extra sales, and, you know, put some money aside to, you know, market the company and, you know, put some budgets in. So just going back to this spreadsheet here, what I see a lot of people do is where you've got the advertising budget down near the bottom that says 5,200. What you could do is say, okay, next year I'm going to double my advertising spend to say 10,400, but then I think as a result my turnover is going to go up from 81 to 120 because I brought in that new business. And when you're doing these sort of things, have a play with the numbers. Literally, it's just a case of, you know, saying, okay, well, why don't we put 3 times the amount of advertising and put more income in, and, you know, put together as many sheets as you like. What's important is that you're actually looking at your business from an analytical point of view, you know, looking out in on the business. Because being a business owner like yourself, so I do know what it's like getting caught up in the run-ins of the business and never sitting back and saying, you know what did I do for February? How much money did I make? How much money did I make for January? And it's a really good habit to start, you know, looking at your figures, maybe not annually, but monthly. Because once you put your figures together, you can start actually looking at what you've done and seeing why it differs. You know, setting yourselves targets and saying, okay, I predicted for the month of January to do 15,000 sales. You know, we did 17,000. That's great. You know, what did we do different? So really, it's just a case of doing something. And the reason I wanted to talk to you guys was that a lot of people don't do any of this. You know, I've got a lot of clients that would honestly put their hand up and say, I've never even done a budget, never done a cash flow. I just go ahead and make money and go from one year to the next. And, you know, it's a common thing. And, you know, depending on the size of your business, some businesses do engage with their accountant like me and say, look, can you help us to put together a quite complex sort of large span sort of budget and forecast. But on smaller businesses as well that maybe don't have the budget to give me money to do it, you know, do it yourself, have a go. It's really, really good to sort of play around with the numbers and think, wow, you know, if I just did another 10% turnover, I could really put my profits up. So that's basically just having a guesstimate at what you're going to do the next year. Another good thing that you might want to do is cash flow. So using the spreadsheet that you've used for your budget, try and put together it in a cash flow format and try and span it out monthly. So what you can see then is at the bottom, you see where I've got opening bank balance and closing bank balance. That's literally you just tracking where you expect your bank balance to be as you go through the year. And what you can do within that is you can identify peaks and troughs. So say, for example, your busy periods in the summer, but then it's a bit quieter in the winter months. You know, you can budget for it. You can see what money you've got and when the right time to do things is. So it might just be that you say, okay, turnover is more in July. That's when we should look to do our advertising push. So, you know, you can really map out sort of a calendar of when you want to do certain things. It's like going into battle with a plan. You know, you want to succeed, you want to grow, and it's, you know, it's having that plan in place. So if I just move on to the next slide, what I thought was important was I'm just going back to this having an advertising budget. It's just asking the question, do you record where you get your new business from? Now, I don't proclaim to be a marketing expert because I'm not at all. But what I do is every single new piece of business that comes into my practice, I know where I've got it from. So when I am putting together a cash flow or a budget and I say, this is how much money I've got to spend to expand my business, I'm spending it in the right places. So, again, I know that there's people within the BizSmart community that do marketing and they're experts at it. And sitting with them and saying, look, this is my turnover last year. What's a reasonable budget for me to expect to grow to this amount? So if I'm sat down with a client and we were doing a cash flow forecast or a budget, the first thing I'd start with is say, well, what sales do you expect to bring in? And, if you want to grow it, how are you going to grow it? How are you going to do it? And, none of us expect us to be spot on. We just want to expect to do well, to succeed. So as I put, plan for some growth. So the bit that I like doing is sitting down, putting your spreadsheet together, putting your cash flow or budget together, then making hundreds and hundreds of different versions. So I remember one client, we used to have about 5 versions. We had worst case scenario, okay, best case, super great, and fantastic. And once you've done the work on just putting your first sheet together, play around with it. So for example, you can see here on the slide I put new staff, increased turnover. So you could have a play around and say, okay, well, what about if we double the turnover next year? Let's double the turnover and let's put a new staff member in halfway through the year, and just play around with the figures. I know I'm a bit of a numbers geek, but I think that's the fun part. That's the good part of business. Sort of saying, what if we do this and what if we do that? And it's really good to just sit there and say, actually, now I've done all of these things, I've got an idea, a clear strategy and plan on not only how we're going to grow the business, but when we're going to do it. We're going to grow it in July, we're going to have more turnover, we're going to take on more staff, and this is how it's going to work. And you'd be amazed on how many people, just by writing something down, you can make it happen. So if you do nothing and just carry on in your business with no budgets, no ideas on how much money you're making, some people do make money from it and they do okay, but some people have got it all mapped out in their head, and there's nothing wrong with having a 5-year time budget to where you want the business to be in 5 years. So you might have a turnover of 50k and in 5 years you say it's going to be $1 million. Why not? Put it together. Keep looking at it. I know I've got a budget that's got phenomenal figures in it, and I just keep going into it and looking at it and thinking, that's the dream. That's where I want to be. And if a lot of people do put what they would consider in the first instance outrageous figures in there, but I always say to people, the people that I know that have done really well have put those ambitious numbers in and they made it 90% of the way, and 90% of the figures they first set out to put is still really, really good. So what I'm trying to say is, even if you just spend half an hour putting something basic together, just do it. If you write it down, I'm just a firm believer on it. Well, you can make things happen. Now, if you want me to send over some templates, I'm more than happy. Anyone that's interested, I've got some basic cash flow templates, some basic budget templates that are just set up for you to just change the headings, put your own figures in there and have a play around. I'm more than happy to do that. If you want to come in and have a free consultation with me and have a bit of a chat about it, I'm not going to try and bully you into having to pay me to do lots of weird and wonderful things. I just feel passionate about people doing things like this, not leaving things to the end of the year and saying, I don't know how I've done. That's what I'm paying you for. You tell me how I've done. I like it when people say, I know how I've done and I've pretty much done what I expected to do. So, so really the webinar wasn't really too much detail on how to do it, because I could spend hours going through how you'd actually set the sheets up. I just wanted to just relay the importance, and to me and my business I found it really, really helpful. The other thing is I'm just going through some past experiences. I remember with a client putting a budget together, and just by putting the budget together he didn't realise how much he was spending on different areas. He wasn't even looking at it, and he said, wow, I spent that much in bank charges last year. So he phoned the bank manager up and he managed to get a load back. you didn't even realise. You know, people just do not look at their figures. And you know what? If you do, and you're in a nice webinar, then I say fair play to you. Good, you're going in the right direction. So, you know, set those budgets, and if you can find just half an hour today, if you haven't done it, put a simple spreadsheet together and say that's last year's figures, this is what I want next year's figures to be, and set yourself a target and measure it, even if not monthly, every 3 months. Pull your figures together and say, how have I done? Make yourself accountable. I think that's it really. I mean, sorry if I've just talked you all to death, but you know, I do think it's a really good thing to have.
No, that's great. Thank you very much, Simon. Let's see, we've got some time for some questions. The first question is from Simon, and he asks, what is the difference between financial accounting and management accounting?
Okay, so the main difference is I get involved more in financial accounting, which really tends to be, give me your books or accounts at the end of the year. We put you some figures together and we submit everything that needs doing. We do management accounting, but not as much. But management accounting tend to be for slightly larger businesses that want to know how they're doing as they go. So they would be pulling their figures off monthly and doing like a monthly profit and loss and saying, look, how have we done for the month? So really management is more ongoing sort of accounts. Financial ones are more just end of year job.
Okay, thank you very much. And Lee asks, how many budget scenarios do you suggest I prepare?
So this is just my personal opinion, and that's a really good question, so thanks for that. I would go for a annual budget to start with, so what you want to do in the next year, and I would probably look to plan to go 5 years ahead. I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. You know, do year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, and just keep adding on those numbers, keep vamping it up every year. If you want, just double it, and keep doubling it, you know. So I think, you know, and maybe if you like me and you're really analytical, have monthlies as well, or quarterlies, go right into the detail. I even have one client that actually has weekly. He does a weekly profit and loss account and really tracks it, which is good. Probably one of the biggest clients and he's done really well because of it. So
great,
thanks for that.
Next question is from Paul, and he asks, what is the main advantages of producing budgets?
So I think I've probably gone over this in the webinar, but the main advantage is, one, looking at your business in a different light, looking at it as numbers and figures, not actually as the business as it is sat in there running it. And the other thing is ambition. You know, we all want to make more money, we all want to grow, we all want to do well. And, you know, I think this is just another tool that you can use to drive you on. Because for some people, seeing what they could make if they just tweaked it and brought in some more sales can get people excited about the business. Because, you know, it is easy to get bogged down in your business. And then, you know, sitting down of an evening and saying, you know what, I didn't have a bad year last year, and, you know, if I could just grow my sales 30-40%, I could really make some good money here. So I think it's sort of for ambition and sort of that drive. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Simon, for hosting today's webinar. I will be sending out a copy of the presentation and Simon's contact details out to you all very shortly. So please do email him if you have any further questions. But before we close, just a quick reminder, this webinar is part of our service to our Smart Room members. If you're not already a member or a BizSmart client and would like to access our archive of webinars, then please visit our website, biz-smart.co.uk, and go to the Smart Room page. We hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and you can join us again very soon. Thank you for listening.